with the world famous Richard Wyatt Jr. He is the brilliant artist that has done the mural that is on front of the James O. Jesse Unity Center. So welcome. We're so excited to have you here at our community center.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we're extremely excited to hear this history about this mural that's been on the front of the building for how long? When was the first time you painted the mural?
I believe it was like around 1997 or so. I answered an RFQ, request for proposal, or for qualifications, for a possible mural here at this site. And I made the finalists, I believe, and you had to present a maquette, which is a small design drawing of it to scale. And I presented it to James, who was director during that time, and he fell in love with it. He said it's perfect. And he told me later on years that as soon as I showed him design, I had it. So once I did that. I began making plans for staging, how to, how I was going to deal with the actual implementation of it. And I wanted to have like kids from the neighborhood involved, so they worked out a system where they had kids from the neighborhood who were actually involved in the painting and actually received compensation for it. So it was like an apprenticeship kind of program. And they were kids, and I'm sure by now these kids got kids and might have even more kids, So.
Exactly. And
but it was just a really I really enjoyed the process. I mean, I love it out here anyway. It's like being out in LA is like my second neighborhood, and when I come to visit people and people who I've kept up with through the years. So.
And so how did the inspiration come from to create this specific mural? Like, who are the people that are in the mural? Are they specific people that are in the community or that was in your life? Like, how did the whole, the composition of it, how was that created?
Well, first of all, look at the wall. I look at the light, and then it sort of suggests what kind of design concept, I want to have, and what kind of approach I want to take on that. And I usually use people that I know, friends of mine and family. I very seldom use people from the actual communities that I paint in, because there's always a chance of, how come you don't have my son up there, whatever. So there's always a chance of that, and so I try to avoid that, hit it off at the pass. And so it's a combination of people, friends and people I know. The two people on the end, couples in the dashikis, that's my mom and dad. And the little girl in the foreground is actually a friend of mine's daughter, who is now grown and married, and so they're a combination of people, composites from here and there, from our work, in the past and stuff.
And how does it make you feel as an artist to have a mural in a community that it has created so much positive impact?
Oh, I love it. I always tell everybody my first actual public art piece, street piece, was done literally in the street in Watts in 1968. I was 12 years old, and they had this event in Watts. It's called the Watts Chalk-In, and they invited people from all over the city to be a part of it. And they had a children's category, and they had a adults category, and they had the best of the show. And I won the children's category, and I also won the best of the show. So that, for me, it set, an early goal and interest for me to become an artist, and that's when I literally became an artist, in the street. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind, I wanted to do work where people lived, because by the time I got to college, I was in a lot of shows and, gallery shows, museum shows, or whatever, but it still bothered me that a lot of the work that I was doing wasn't being seen in communities where I grew up in. And that was like in Compton and Watts. And so I decided to go back, my junior year at UCLA, I decided to go back and do works back in the streets. And the first piece I did was a commission series of murals for the Compton Unified School District, and so I've always that's always been a theme in my work. So bringing it back to your original question, I love working in communities because I like the rapport that I establish with the community and seeing people every day, And it could be a neighborhood community or it could be a corporate community too, When I did the piece at Capitol, I mean, that was a community, And so, you meet a lot of people. And
can you talk a little bit more about that experience with Capitol Records? Because that's the vision that we have for the community to hear, is to create and figure out how we can have a tile facade that would last the test of time. The honor your work should have.
Yeah.
So how was that process, and were you a part of that process, and can you tell us about how that process happened?
Sure. When I originally painted it, I painted it in acrylic paint, and I was I've been looking at this wall for years, and finally I got the guts enough to approach them, and with the help of the Los Angeles Jazz Society at the time, Terry Merrill Aarons, the late Terry Merrill, and they got behind the efforts to do it, and so we had to look for a wall, and I says, well, let's try Capitol. I love this wall. And I talked to a friend of mine who was working there, and set up a presentation for the CEO, which is Joe Smith, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And the one caveat was that when I did Nat King Cole, I had to have the approval of his wife, Maria Cole, who was still living at that time. And she said that she loved it. She said the only thing, she said, could you put his favorite tie on it? That's his Mrs. Cole, for you, anything. I mean, whatever tie you want. And so it was really nice. I mean, it's so that whole process, it was painted. That took about 8 months to paint it. 8 to 9 months to paint it. But it ran into the same problem that you guys have here, which is that direct sunlight, and the south-facing wall is the worst. The best wall is either east or north-facing wall, but I always wind up with these south-facing walls. Yeah. But it would be to the city's advantage to pursue the tile, technique, because it does last. I mean, there's no fading in the color or anything, and it's very resilient,
And how does that process happen? Is that something that you work with a particular art studio to create?
No, I do it all myself.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So please tell us this process.
Well, what happens is that the process is that, from the original piece that I did, I'd look at the painting and how it was before it got destroyed, and then I break it down, because in the kind of glazes that I used 06 glazes, and you can't mix them it's not like painting, because you can have a color that looks gray on a tile, and it could be yellow when it's fired. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's real labor intensive. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that go into it, and like I said, it's very time consuming, because if you get a good firing, it's great, but you can get a great firing and use the wrong color. And then you have to refire it, or you can get a great firing and it warps or it cracks. So
it's really volatile.
Yeah. And so I've learned how to work with a lot of students, like art students, who give them a chance to do the apprenticeship, and they also make money and also help. So it's worked out.
In this process, just so we can wrap our heads around it, how many kilns were used? Did you have a facility that was that you were able to work in,
I had a studio in Inglewood that I rented specifically for the process, and I had 2 kilns, and that wasn't enough at a certain point, so I had to get another kiln in Long Beach that could handle huge volumes of firings at one time, and that, in a sense, it saved me deadline wise to get it done, because there was a real tight deadline involved in it. So
the process of cutting the clay and glazing the clay and firing the clay, Do you feel like that whole process would be something that, if it was a community effort, it would be something that we could benefit of? Like if the community had a pottery studio to create something like this, then it would contribute even more to the community? How would something like that?
Well, the tiles that I use are actually commercial tiles that, you know, because it would take forever to do all that whole process. But yeah, it would be good. The only problem is that it's really it's a little more, you know, I would be hesitant to involve kids in it because of some of the glazes and some of the formulations of the glazes. They'd have to wear gloves and masks, and you don't run into that same problem with like paint, you know, acrylic paint. Yeah,
so with the process of creating, how long did it take the Capitol Records for you to create each tile for the firing, the whole from start to finish? How long did it take?
Wow, that took about a year. It took about a year, maybe 3 or 4 months. Only because of, like I say, the installation. The piece was 26 feet high by 88 feet across.
Oh wow!
So it was major. Yeah. It's a lot tougher. Like I said, you know, painting wasn't so bad because I painted it. I had set up my own scaffolding, you know, and a lot of the artists that are represented on the wall, jazz artists, were still living, and they came by, you know, like. For instance, I was working on Jerry Mulligan and listening to his music, and he pulls up.
Oh my God!
Yeah, actually, I got a picture of it too. You know, he's real nice, and I says, "Wow, man!" I said, "You know, you are. I mean, birth of the cool. You know, Miles Davis and all. You know."
And how did you acquire the picture of Miles? You told me, but I want you to.
Yeah. A good friend of mine, New York photographer Tony Barboza, who has done some of the most iconic photographs in the country. He did there was like a tribute to some of the things that he's done about a few years ago online. It was incredible the body of work and the volume of people that he covered. But anyway, he was good friends with Miles Davis. And I think at the time Miles Davis was living in Malibu. And I said, "Man, you know, I really wish I had a good picture of Miles." You know, he says, "Well, I'm going by there. You know, I'll take some pictures." And he took some pictures, and this one in particular, he had on the hat and everything. You know, which is the one that's represented in the mirror. I said, "This is it. This is the one." You know, so it worked out, and that's how Miles came.
Wow. Yeah. And so going back to our mural here, the process, are you at a point of your career that you would be able to give time and space to be able to recreate a mural of that magnitude again? Because that was what, 7 years ago?
Yeah. It would take quite a bit of time, you know, but depending on how things work out with the city and the interest and everything, and you know, I could set up time. Like I told you earlier, I'm working on a show now, which opens in January in LA. So I've been pretty consumed with that. But you know, after that, I'm pretty good.
And can you tell us more about that show so we can come out to support you? Because I know that there's a lot of community members here who want to see more of your work. When I posted online about your work, I got several young artists reaching out to me. It's like, where's his work? Is there a map? Is there is there a list of where all your work is located?
Yeah, it's all over the place. You know, the best thing is that's why I created the website so people can see where the works are. A lot of the earlier works aren't even here anymore. But back to the show. The show is going to be in LA, and it's going to be at Steve Turner Gallery. And I did a show with him back in 2005, and I really enjoy working with him. And he says, "Man, you know, I want to do another show." So I says, that's fine, you know, because I just finished being in a couple of shows in New York, and so, you know, I says, "Yeah, that'd be great," you know, so.
So great. So they've got a show that's coming up in January, and hopefully we'll be able to get the project funding and the monies and everything in order for you to recreate this artwork here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it's a big ask to ask
Mm-hmm.
you, how long and how ballpark would you think something of our wall and structure and magnitude would
Mm-hmm.
take you to do as an artist?
It would take about, I would say 18 months.
Okay.
18 months, and that's from start to installation. You know.
And then the
Yeah.
prices of ceramics and all of that has gone up. Have you
Yeah.
seen, do you think it's economically feasible for something like this to be done?
It depends. I'm doing getting numbers for you. You should have the end of this week
Okay.
for you guys to go over. But it could be pretty costly, you know. But what I try to do is use colors that aren't as expensive, you know, and there are like a lot of lead free glazes that, you know, will allow you to. There's ways to cut around a few corners, you know.
And
but you
still
can't
have the quality and the
Oh yeah,
detail.
yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah. That's number one. It's going to be. It's got to be good.
And how would
Yeah.
you feel to see another piece of your artwork being immortalized? That you would have a hand in creating another piece of work out of your first piece of work, evolving into another masterpiece. I mean, it's been 7 years since you've done that. Like, do you have any fond memories of the process? I mean, is it something you'd want to undertake again?
Yeah. I mean, it would be great because, you know, I'm at the age now where I don't climb as much. So, you know, it would be great. I kind of keep my feet on the ground now, and ceramic tile offers that. It's great in terms of that part of it, you know, and being able to get around safely and stuff. So, and plus it lasts forever. You know, it doesn't fade. Lasts
Right.
forever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And